It's not a hard sell. It's not an in-your-face sale. It's just a resource people come across. And I have enough of these kinds of videos on YouTube that a lot of people come to my site because of it. In fact, probably 95% of my sales for that course come through those YouTube videos. Live your faith, build your business, and change your world. This is Live, Build, Change. It is unbelievable to think that we are 20 episodes in to the Live, Build, Change podcast. I am Carey Green, and my goal with this podcast is to help you live your faith in Jesus Christ authentically and genuinely in a way that enables you to believe God to help you to build a business. So that's the live and the build part. And you're building that business to change the world, to truly make a difference through the revenue that that business generates. And on this episode of the podcast, I want to talk to you about how you can step-by-step build an online training course of some sort. Now, in the past, you have heard me talk a lot about training courses and why I believe online courses are so good. And the main reason is that they're the kind of thing you can set up and have little to no maintenance going forward. So once you've put in all the work to establish it, once you get it online and you start marketing it, you may be able to leave that course running and have income coming in from it over and over and over and not have to do anything in terms of upkeep. Now, there are little things here and there where you have questions that come in and there's ways you can deal with those in a more expeditious way, where you might have technical glitches happen in your course system. I mean, all that can happen. But by and large, it's as close to passive income as I know. And the reason I'm so sold on online courses is because I have 2 online courses, and the income that they generate is pretty substantial. You can hear more about that in previous episodes. But what I want to do in this episode is walk you step by step through some of the ways you can put together an online course that are absolutely free for the most part. So that means you're not going to be paying some service to sell your course for you or for the privilege of using their software. And I'm talking about places like Udemy and Skillshare and those kinds of things. Those are great platforms. I do have one of my courses on one of those platforms, but I don't like that model as much because even though they do have kind of a catalog that people can search and they might find your course, their catalogs are kind of like the Amazon sales catalog. They're getting more and more full all the time. And it's harder and harder for people to find your course. And so the price you have to pay that e-learning platform like Udemy, I don't know exactly what it is, but 20 to 30%. So you're losing that much of your revenue on every single sale. Whereas if you build the course yourself on your own website, you do definitely have the burden of marketing it well and learning how to do that, which I think every online business person needs to learn anyway. But if you can do that successfully, which I believe you can see significant income starting to come in through those online marketing efforts that you're doing. So that you don't need those other platforms to do it. You can do it all yourself and save a lot of that revenue. Now, the way I'm going to teach you to do it is using payment processors that only charge like 3.5% plus maybe 50 cents per transaction. So for a relatively small fee, you're able to process someone's payment, have it go directly into your bank account once a week. And it's an incredible opportunity that you have to build your own course. So with that said, let's get started telling you how to develop your own online learning course. Okay, now step number 1 is to come up with your course idea. And this is not an easy step. It is perhaps the most time-consuming because it not only includes discovering what you have that you can build a course around in terms of expertise and experience and knowledge, but it also includes honing down those ideas to find the one that not only you will be best at presenting, but also that there is really a need for. Now, I went into this in depth in the last episode, on episode 19, which you can find at livebuildchange.com/19. So I'm not going to go into that in depth right now, but let me just say that is what is involved in this step, is discovering which course idea is the best idea for you to run with, and if there is indeed a market for it that you can actually sell to. So that's step number 1, discovering what your course is. Let's move on to step number 2. Step number 2, which is really the second step I followed when I developed my online courses, which if you're curious what those courses are, you can see them at passthesafeexam.com and also at audacityforpodcasting.com. And the only reason I would suggest that you go and look at those is just to get an idea of the kinds of courses I'm talking about. So this step number 2 is deciding how you're going to lay out your course. And this is going to take you working through the general topic that you're wanting to teach your course on and breaking it down into the components that will make up the course. And so the way that I suggest, I went through in episode 19 to a degree, but I'm going to go into it a little bit more here. You're going to put out, say on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper or even a document on your computer, you are going to put a title across the top that is the topic of your course. And don't worry about it being an exact name of the course or an exact wording that you think will be catchy. Forget all that for right now. Right now, you're just trying to figure out content and what that course would contain. And so what I would suggest you do is write out that topic across the top of your whiteboard or piece of paper, and underneath it, just brain dump every single idea you have that could be a topic possibly in your course. You don't have to nail this down for certain right now. You're going to do some tweaking later on, but right now you just want to do a brain dump. You want to get everything out of your head that you could possibly teach about that course. So just make it a bullet point outline. I would suggest you write it quickly. As soon as something comes to your mind, just write out the idea well enough that if you look back at that idea later, you know what it meant. You know, we've all written down something and then we come back to it later and can't figure out what we meant by it. So write enough on your bullet point to give you a refresher if you come back to it later so you know what you meant when you wrote that bullet point. And then write the next bullet point that comes to your mind, then write the next one and write the next one. And do this until you run out of ideas, until you run out of topics that have to do with the course you're wanting to put together. And then go grab a cup of coffee, go on a walk, go do some push-ups, do some, get your mind off of it, go listen to some great music and come back to it and do another brain dump. Anything that you haven't unloaded so far, unload it again and do the same thing over and over until you're just dry, until you've kind of dumped your whole brain out and all your ideas are there on the paper. So that's step number 2. Now you've got a list of possible topics to go inside your course. Now let's move on to step number 3. Now for step number 3, you're going to go through this bullet point list that you've created and you're going to start categorizing things, okay? And you can do that in one of a couple of ways. Number 1, you could put them into similar topics, okay? So if there's similar subtopics underneath your main topic and they kind of go together in the way that the topic works, you may want to group them together like that, as this might be a module of your course, as these, say, 4 topics that you've come up with in your bullet point outline. Or you may want to go about it by putting them in sequential order. So if you're going to be teaching your master topic, which is across the top of your whiteboard, what's the very first thing that a person would need to know about that topic? Is it an introductory content? Is it something that tells the benefits that this course is going to produce? I mean, those kinds of things. So you want to put a sequence to these topics that you've written your bullet point outlines about. And that's the second way you could go about it. Now, eventually, you're going to have to sequentially order everything. And I'm giving you 2 options here on this step because it's possible that one may work for you better than the other. And that's okay. It's just in the way you think and in the way that you organize things in your own mind. You may even want to get some help on this if you know someone else who knows the topic well, or someone who is interested in the topic may even be a better choice because they could help you see from a learner's perspective where it's confusing and where the sequence doesn't quite fit. So that's the third step, is getting your topics for your course in a sequential order. And if you see any places where things need to be grouped together, because say you do your bullet point outline and you've got 80 bullet points, I mean, you're not going to create a course with 80 modules. I mean, come on, no one would ever get through the course. And you truly want to help people with your course. So you want to make it as succinct and as pithy as possible, but still provide great value. So you may want to bundle some things together to cut down the number of bullet point ideas that you had from that first step. So that's step number 3. Let's move on to step number 4. Now, step number 4 is perhaps the hardest part of creating your online course, and that is figuring out exactly what you're going to say in every one of your modules or your course topics, say. All right, so let's just imagine a scenario here. Say that you've chosen your main topic and you have 10 main steps or topics underneath that you believe go into doing a good course on that subject. Okay, now you've got to figure out what is the content that is going to go into each of those subtopics. Okay, does that make sense? So how are you going to go about doing that? Well, I can think of a couple of ways you could do it. You could, again, go into each subtopic that you have now, the 10 topics underneath your main topic, and create a bullet point outline under it. And let me make a suggestion here. The simpler, the better. But you still want to include all the content that is needed and necessary to be helpful and to master that section of the course. So you may want to do a bullet point outline underneath. Try to hit the 3 main points under that thing and tie them together in some way in the way you deliver the content. But another approach to this is some people think better and they're able to organize their thoughts better when they write things out. So you may want to write out a script, so to speak. Imagine yourself teaching someone else, talking to someone else, telling them how to understand the topic that you're on, and actually write it out as if you're speaking to someone else. This could be 2 pages worth, 3 pages, 5 pages. I don't know. It's going to depend on your topic. But you've got to organize in your own mind how you're going to put that content together. And that is something that you're going to have to do. You're going to have to set aside the time to do it. You're going to have to do it in a way that becomes clear and succinct the more you work on it. Now, one thing I would warn you about here is our tendency is that the longer we work on something like this, the more complicated it becomes. Man, fight that tendency. Try to keep it simple. Try to keep it short as possible, and still explain the subject matter well, because you want to make sure that people who are going through your course are not getting frustrated because it's too confusing to them. You're going to make it as simple and as easy to understand as possible. And you're going to have an editorial step here in a little bit where you have people help you with it that will help clarify that a little bit more. So let's move on to step number 5. You've created your content, and now it's time to start putting it all together in a course. Okay, step number 5 is where the fun begins. This is where you get to decide how you're going to deliver your content, how you're going to present it to the people involved. Now, you're going to use some kind of recording software because this is going to be a video course that will be online. Video courses are by far better than just a written course. In fact, a written course we actually call a book, right? I mean, come on, that's what a book is. A book that is a nonfiction piece of literature is something that you have written to instruct someone on something or to help them understand something. That's all it is. It's a course in book form. And so that's not what we're doing here. We're creating a video course where people are able to see things, they're able to hear things, they're able to learn visually as well as auditorily. Is that how you say it? I don't know. But they're able to see and hear in order to learn. Now, you may also include some written resources that go along with it, which we're going to talk about in the next step. But in this section, you need to determine how you're going to present the course. Now, a lot of people get really wigged out when they think about their own face being on a camera. They think about themselves talking into a camera. And man, I totally understand that. It's weird seeing yourself on film and seeing yourself presenting something. And let me put your mind at rest. Most of my courses do not have me FaceTime on the course. The majority of the content is a screen capture. By that, I mean a recording of what's going on my computer screen, because I'm either using a PowerPoint deck or something like that, a slide deck where I'm showing text and images and describing things that way, or I'm actually doing some process on my computer like audio editing or using a practice test for my Safe Exam course, and I'm showing the people as I'm speaking into my microphone what I'm doing to accomplish the thing that I'm trying to teach them. And so they're not only hearing me instruct them about it, but they're actually seeing it being done in front of them. It's a very effective and powerful way to do that. Now, how do you record your computer screen? Let me give you the piece of software that I use for this. Now, I am on a PC. There are Mac versions of this same kind of thing. I think on Mac, there's one called ScreenFlow, which is very good for this. But for me, I'm using a product called Screencast-O-Matic. Screencast-O-Matic. You can find it with a simple Google search, or it'll be listed in the resources on the show notes for this episode. The Screencast-O-Matic is amazing. You can record your computer screen at the same time recording your voice. Like I'm speaking right now, it would be recorded on my screen. You can also do some editing within the software where if you say something wrong, you can go back and cut that out when you're all done. Or you can pause it and start again and restate what you want and then cut out the bad part. So you can do that kind of editing. You can also overlay text over the top of it. You can overlay images over the top of it. You can add sounds from your computer at the same time that you're recording. I mean, it's an incredible piece of software. And here is the most incredible part. At this point in time, this is February of 2017, it only costs $15 a year. $15 a year. I mean, that's just barely over $1 a month. I mean, come on. It's an incredible piece of software for that amount. I have actually written to the people and encouraged them to charge more. Because imagine if they just changed it to $30 a year, they would double their revenue. I mean, come on. I mean, I don't want to give a business lesson right now because we're talking about online courses, but I'm trying to impress upon you how incredible this software is and the value it is. So anybody can do this. You don't have an excuse for saying, I can't do this. You can do this for $15 a year. You can record your computer screen and create slide decks free with things like Google Slides, which you can Google as well. It'll also be in the show notes for this episode. Google Slides, you can create PowerPoint type presentations, which you could use for your course. So there's no reason you have to go out and buy expensive software. You can do all this way using this screen capture kind of software. So you've thought through your idea. You've developed your modules or your particular videos for your course. You now have a way to record those either through screen capture or I do need to mention through your face on the screen. And by the way, Screencast-O-Matic will allow you to do both, have your face on the screen as well as what you're doing on your computer. So you can do that as well as if you want. But also you can do video recording just of yourself using that little buzzing box in your pocket called your smartphone. It's amazing the time we live in. We have a recording studio in our pocket at all times. Now, if you're able to get over this hesitation we have to put our own face on screen, you can use your smartphone to make recordings of yourself with pretty decent audio that can be a part of this course that you're going to sell. And there are all kinds of inexpensive ways that you can get a stand to set it on, or you can even make your own stand. You could do a DIY thing. In fact, I've made a DIY cell phone stand out of a piece of PVC pipe, which I can show you. I'll put it in the show note links, which you can get on the show notes page for this episode at livebuildchange.com/20. And you can just create one of those things, set it up, record yourself, and then add that to part of your course. Now, of course, you'll have to do some video editing as a part of this, which is not a difficult skill to learn, and which I will give you some resources for so that you can learn to do it with free software. And as you do that, you're not only building this course, but you're adding to your skill set. For most people, Screencast-O-Matic is all you're going to need once you start recording your content. Now, what are you going to say on your content? Well, you're either going to do one of two things, and you need to know yourself well enough to know which of these things you should do. Number one, you can just use that script you wrote out. Okay, remember back in the previous step, you were writing out a script. If you took that approach to organize your thoughts and to help you get it out, well, somewhere in that process, you need to edit that down. You need to make it more punchy and more clear. And if you want to use that as your script, you can do that while you're showing people the things on your computer, while you're showing them the slide deck that you've created or whatever. You're going to have to make some decisions about what should be on your screen and why it should be on your screen and how you're going to use it to teach people. But that script is the way you can do that. Now, the second way that you may want to do this is not for everybody. I have to admit that. But if you are a person who knows your content well enough that you can just talk about it based off of your bullet point outline, and you think somewhat sequentially, you think in a teaching sort of a manner, you may be able to explain what you're talking about step by step as you go through it, just from memory, just from your expertise. And some of you are thinking, oh, there's no way I could ever do that. Well, maybe that's just not your bent, and that's okay. The script may be for you. But for some people, that script is going to be kind of humbug because they know their material so well. They're an expert at teaching it already. In fact, they may talk about it all the time at work right now. So it may be simpler and easier for them just to create a slide deck of the main points they're going to talk about, and they just talk over it and tell the content as they go using that slide deck. You may not realize this, or it may be such that you do realize this, but this particular episode, I'm just talking to you right now. I'm not reading a script. I'm telling you from my memory what I've done to create a course. And I'm sure I'm leaving a few things out here and there, but I want you to have the gist of how simple this is for people who have the ability to do this. So it's another way that you can decide to present your stuff is by doing it according to your bullet point outline. Now, obviously, that outline is going to serve everyone as a basic architecture for what's in the course. But if you have the ability to speak it out and teach it sequentially just from the outline, hey, that's one of the simplest ways to do it. And you can do that using those free tools that I've mentioned. Let's move on to the next step. Okay, the video editing part is this next step. And I want to say right off the bat, don't get intimidated by that. Okay, please, don't get intimidated by the idea of doing video editing. You can do it. It's not that hard to learn. And you can also do it with free software. I mean, absolutely free. Now, I'm going to give you a few resources here that you can use. And I want you to be able to find these things, check them out, download the one that you want, and realize that this really isn't so hard. Okay, now the first one that I'm going to give you is called Screencast-O-Matic, right? I've already talked about that. There's an amazing amount of editing you can do in there. You can even insert a second recording that you make with Screencast-O-Matic. So let me give you a scenario. Say you record your whole presentation doing a screen capture, and you're showing things on your computer, but you feel like at the beginning there needs to be a section where you are on the recording, your face is there, and you're explaining what they're going to experience in this particular part of the course. Okay, well, you can finish your first recording, then you can go back to the beginning and you can tell Screencast-O-Matic you want to insert a new video right there at that point. And then you choose the option to record yourself through the web camera that's on your computer. And with a decent microphone, you can get a screen capture of yourself right there. It will insert it into your existing screen capture video, and you can then go in and edit it, take out gaps and spaces or gaffes or things you just don't like. And it's incredibly effective. Screencast-O-Matic is so powerful. Now think about that. You're spending just over $1 a month for that software. And it has such power to enable you to use both face recordings and screen recordings and integrate them together into a one-piece resource that can go into your course. It's really incredible how affordably you can do this. Now, if you need some more complex editing, like you need to have music underneath, or you need to have transitions and fancy stuff, there is a program called DaVinci Resolve 12.5, and you can find it at www.blackmagicdesign.com, blackmagicdesign.com. It's software that has a free version. And usually when you hear about a free version, you think, well, it's going to be missing some of the main things I need. Not the case with DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve has an amazing array of resources that you can use free of charge, much like something like Adobe Premiere or something like that, if you're familiar with that kind of software, where you can do professional grade edits with this thing, including chroma key and all that. And if that doesn't make any sense to you, don't worry about it. But it's incredible the things you can do with this free piece of software. It is a professional quality piece of software. So it's DaVinci Resolve. You can find it at blackmagicdesign.com. So as you can see, the only thing you're going to have to do using a software like that is learn how to use it. And they have lots of videos on their site to help you with that. So this video editing part is another piece that's kind of difficult to do, but think this through. If you invest the time in this at the front end and you create a quality video product, you are able to put that online and potentially receive ongoing income from that for years into the future. My first video course, the Pass the Safe exam, I started in 2013. So depending on when you're listening to this, right now when I'm recording, it's 4 years old. And for 4 years, I've been experiencing an increasing amount of income from that course without me having to do very much with it at all. So that's what you're talking about here. If you invest the time here at the front end to make this course not only valuable in terms of the content, but also professional and presentable in the way that you put it together, including your audio editing, which is going to be a little bit of a learning curve for some people, you are going to build yourself a means of revenue that is an incredible asset to you for years to come. So don't let yourself get scared by the learning curve. You're going to have to fight this in terms of your mindset. You're going to feel a resistance at points. And I want you to resist it with all your might. Pray and ask the Lord God in heaven to help you push through. And just like any skill, you're going to have to learn some things. You're going to have to learn a little bit here, a little bit there. There's going to be some things that are hard to learn. But you know as well as I do the value of learning a new skill and how you build in confidence as you take action. And that's what's going to happen with this. Now, there's one other option here for the video editing that you can do, and it's something you can outsource. If you don't know how to do video editing, you're not interested in learning how to do video editing, and you have the funds to pay someone to do it, that's always an option. Think of it in terms of investing in a cash-generating resource. We do investments all the time in our world. I don't know if you do, but people invest money in things they believe are going to bring a greater return to them. So, for example, if you and I worked out an arrangement that you gave me a nickel and I gave you back a dime, and you'd go hunting nickels, wouldn't you? You would cash out all your dollars for nickels because you're getting double your money in that transaction, right? Well, that's essentially what an investment is. And you need to think of this course in that way. If you decide that it's better for you time-wise and all that to hire out the video editing, well, know this, it's going to cost you something. And if it's a good video editor, it's going to cost you a significant piece. I don't know exactly what, but you would just have to price that out. But that's an investment in a course that you're expecting to bring multiples of revenue to you. And if you will work at the marketing, if you will work at the promotion in ways that are wise, which we'll talk about in another episode, then you'll be able to establish your course as a means of education for people, is truly helping them, and will generate the revenue that you've invested in it and more. It only took me like 3 or 4 months to get back the investment I'd put in terms of my time and my money into my first course, the Pass the Safe exam course. So I know you can do this. I'm nobody special. I just know how to learn. I know how to work at things, and you can do that too. So this whole video editing step can sound intimidating, and it is difficult on certain levels, but it doesn't have to be. You can do this. I'm confident that you can. And with the help of the Lord God Almighty, absolutely, you can pull this off. Now let's move on to the next step. Okay, I'm not sure what step we're on, but we're talking about building a video course that you can put online. Now, you've created your course outline, you've started recording the content, you've even done your video editing up to this point. So you have, say, 6 modules all finished, ready to go. What are you going to do then? Well, you've got to decide on how you're going to deliver that content to people. How are they going to get it? Are they going to download your videos? Are they going to log into a website and see them online only? That's what I would recommend, because if people start downloading your videos, then they're free to share with other people, okay? So I would not recommend you do that. I would say you get a website, which is going to cost you about $15 a month for your web hosting, and it's going to cost you about $15 a year for your website name, okay? So your www. Whatever you get. That's a fairly minimal investment. You're going to build out your website, which you can do by having someone build it for you. Again, you can invest in that, or you can learn to do that yourself. There are some tutorials I will link to in this episode of the show that a guy named Pat Flynn has done that will teach you how to set up a WordPress website right away. Now, I'm also going to include there next to it a link that is an affiliate link of mine to a service called Bluehost, which is where you can host a website from. And if you use that particular link to purchase web hosting and set up a website on Bluehost, which you're going to have to do somewhere, it will give me a $50 commission just for referring you to them. Now, you pay the same price. There's no problem there, but it just is a way you could say thank you to me and what we're doing here at Live Build Change. So it's an option there. You don't have to use it. You could just go to bluehost.com. The thing that brought that up in my mind is that Pat recommends Bluehost in his videos, and he mentions his Bluehost link. So I just wanted you to know I've got one as well. You feel free to use Pat's, feel free to use mine, feel free to go to bluehost.com yourself and set it up. It doesn't matter to me, but I would appreciate your support of Live Build Change if you choose to go that route. Now, once you've decided how you're going to deliver your content, which I suggest, there's a login on a website where they do that, you start putting those videos somewhere on the internet, not on your website. You can't actually load videos into a website and very easily put them in a way that they're playable on your website. Your video is hosted somewhere else. Think of YouTube, okay? You upload videos to YouTube and they're hosted on YouTube's server is what it's called. It's just a big computer database where your content lives, okay? And anytime someone plays your video, whether it's on YouTube or on another website, it pulls from YouTube's server, okay? Now, there are pay-for services that you can use. Screencast-O-Matic actually has a place you can save videos on their server. It's part of that $15 a year thing. It's just incredible. So you could upload your videos to Screencast-O-Matic. You could take their code and embed it on your website and have a player right there for your video on your website. That's one route. I have most of mine on YouTube, and you can set it so that it's unlisted and people can't find it in search. They don't know about it unless they know about it. And so that's how I've chosen to do it, just because YouTube has a pretty robust infrastructure and their videos work almost all the time. So that's why I've chosen to go that route. But you've got to decide where your videos are going to live and how you're going to present them on your website so that you can present them to the people who purchase your course and begin using it. Now, another thing I mentioned here that I guess I should go into now is that you may want to include some additional text resources to go with your videos. Now, some simple ways to do that is to get a transcription made of the audio content of your video and put it into a PDF, which is a type of document, and make that PDF downloadable from your website, right where the video is. That's an additional resource because some people love to read and it helps them to learn better instead of just listening and watching. So any way you can get more senses involved, the more likelihood it is that people are going to be able to actually learn what it is you're teaching. Now, another way you can do resources that people can download, which, by the way, adds value to your course. So when you're telling about your course, you're able to say there's even downloadable resources. That is like another tease to get people to purchase your course. You can create action sheets, is what I would call them, a little application of what you've taught. So they can download this document that gives them an assignment to do based on what they just learned, or gives them steps to follow. So it's kind of like a little cheat sheet to summarize what you talked about in the video. I mean, there's all kinds of things like that you can provide. And I do that in all of my courses where there's downloadable resources as well as the video. So keep that in mind as an additional way. Now, all this is about deciding how you're going to deliver your content. Right now, we're talking about how to put it on a website, how to have your videos on the internet somewhere where you can include them on your website. And I've mentioned there being a password that they have to use or having to log into a website. On both of my courses, I'm going to reveal something here that not most people know, but it doesn't really matter to me if they know or not. And that is the way I've set up my courses. The document that everybody downloads that has the password so that they can log into the course is the same document for everybody. Now, if you think that through for a moment, there are some security risks there, meaning they could pass that document along to someone else and someone else could use it on my website and get in and get my course for free. That's entirely possible. But what I've found is twofold. Number one, I want to trust the Lord with that because in order to have a subscription thing where everybody gets a different login, I would have to use a service that's more expensive than what I'm using. And I've just chosen I don't want to put that cost into my business at this point. And so I use this other method where they use a payment service, which I'll talk about in the next step, and they download a document that has a password. But most people don't recognize that it's the same password for everybody. And so they don't even think about passing it along. That's the second component of this trust. Number one, I'm trusting God. Number two, I'm just trusting that people are going to do the right thing, which they generally do. So in my situation, that's how I'm doing it. You may decide that you want to have a separate password for each person, which gets more complicated, which means you've got to have a service that will provide that for you. You can do that through actual services online that you can pay for, or you can do it through having a plugin on your website. We're kind of getting into the techie stuff here, but a plugin is a piece of software you add to your website that enables you to put in place a password for each individual person who downloads. And you're talking about plugins that are going to cost you something. The cost is going to be different for every plugin, and it may be an annual fee, it may be a monthly fee. I can't tell you because it will depend on the plugin that you use, but that is a possibility. But what I'm describing to you is what I've done. It's the least expensive way of doing it, and it's only going to cost you whatever your payment processor charges you for processing the credit card payments that you're taking. So that's the piece about putting it online, putting it on your website and making it available to your actual students. Let's move on to the next step, and I'm going to talk to you about payment processing. Okay, when it comes to payment processing online, you've got to have a way of accepting someone's credit card payment. You don't have a little swiper thing there in your home probably where you're able to take credit cards. I mean, you may have. I mean, Stripe has a thing like that. Square has a thing like that. PayPal has a thing like that. But you don't want to have to deal with the payment personally every time someone transacts with you. You want it to be automated. And so there are some services out there that's all they do. They deliver certain content to people who purchase things through their system. And you're able to use their system for a course like what I'm describing. I'm going to give you two of the many services that are out there. These are two that I have used, two that I don't have much problem with in terms of technically they're easy to use. But there's one of them that I use primarily. The one that I use primarily is called Gumroad, just like it sounds, Gumroad.com. Gumroad is a payment processor, which is the place where I put my document that has the password. And Gumroad will provide to me a way to describe what my product is with a payment button. I can place that button on my website. And when people click on it, it opens up a window where they put in their credit card information. They say, yes, I want to buy this. And it charges their credit card. Well, then what Gumroad does is it sends them an email that contains an attachment that is the document with the password. And that document also instructs them go to this web page, log in where it says using this password, and now you have lifetime access to the course. And that's how Gumroad functions for me. What Gumroad does, and what they charge me for doing that for me, is they charge me, I believe it's 3.9% plus 50 cents per transaction. So for a $25 transaction, for example, on my Pass the Safe exam course, they're charging me 3.5% plus 50 cents. That's not much on a $25 course. I mean, 10% would be $2.50 and then add 50 cents is $3, but it's much less than that because it's 3.9%. So think that through. That's a pretty good exchange for the service they're providing to me. And so Gumroad every week on Friday initiates a payment to me for what has transpired in the previous week. So I'm getting a payment every Friday for courses that are purchased. And the people are able then to log into my website, to use the course materials at their own leisure, at their own rate, and to learn the skills that I'm teaching them. And it's pretty hands-off for me. It's something I don't have to babysit. Gumroad is very reliable. Now, I mentioned there's another source that I've used. It's called Selz, SELZ.com, and it is basically the same as Gumroad. I have used Selz before, and in particular, I switched from Selz back to Gumroad because I'd used Gumroad at first because of the way Selz was doing their reporting of statistics and the way that they were making their payments. I just didn't like it as much as I liked Gumroad. Now, you may like it better. Selz is a very clean interface. It's very user-friendly. So you might find that you like it better than Gumroad. I don't know. But those are two options to do it the way that I do it. Okay. Now, understand there are a lot of ways to deliver your content and to receive your payments that I haven't mentioned. There are online platforms like Udemy and Skillshare that will be in the resources for this episode at livebuildchange.com/20. But they are ones that will charge you more money because they have the platform where you put your videos, you host them there, you run your payment there, people go there to get your course. They never go to your website. They go to this platform to use your course. And those platforms actually will give you tools to help you promote your course, which is a great thing. But keep in mind, they're going to take a bigger chunk of your revenue for doing all those things. So that's why I haven't gone those ways. I wanted to get as much revenue out of my courses as I could. And I felt that I could learn the marketing skills that it would take to make the course an actual profitable thing. And I guess that's where we need to go next is your marketing. How are you going to get this course found? Now, instead of teaching you a whole slew of marketing principles in this step, I'm going to save that for another episode of the podcast. But I can tell you what I've done on these two courses that I'm talking about that has been actually fairly successful. And that is YouTube. What I've done in many cases, like for my Pass the Safe exam course, is say there is a module about studying for the math portion of this test, okay? And say that module is 10 minutes long. It's a 10-minute video. I will take like the first 2 minutes of the video where it does teach one of the concepts, and I'll cut that out, and I'll put a little video at the beginning and at the end explaining this is part of the Pass the Safe exam course. And I will put that on YouTube as a free video that anyone can benefit from. And I will say at the end of it, or even with a little annotation that YouTube lets you do at the bottom, that this is part of the Pass the Safe exam course. Get your course starting at $25 at this web address. You see, and I'm using it as a promotional piece. And it's not a hard sell. It's not an in-your-face sale. It's just a resource people come across. And I have enough of these kinds of videos on YouTube that a lot of people come to my site because of it. In fact, probably 95% of my sales for that course come through those YouTube videos. So YouTube is an incredible resource. I mean, think about all the times you want to learn how to do something. You'll go to YouTube often and you'll search in it just like you would search in Google because it's easier to learn watching. It's easier to learn listening. And it lends itself very much as a promotional tool for video courses, just like we're doing. So YouTube is the main way I do this. Now, I mentioned also that there are principles to marketing you have to learn in terms of how to go about promoting your stuff and how to talk about it in a way that doesn't push people away, but rather draws them in. That's all stuff you can learn. It's all stuff I'm going to talk about on some of the episodes of the podcast that are yet to come. But there's something else I want to talk to you about that I have not yet ventured into. And maybe this will be the bonus part of this particular episode. But it's using ad spending, purchasing advertisements for your course, which I'm going to be stepping into here soon. And I'll report to you as I do, but let's talk about it for just a minute. Okay, for any course that you create, any resource really, it doesn't have to be a course even, it could be a book, it could be a signing people up for your email list, all kinds of things like that. For any of those kinds of things, you could purchase Facebook advertising or Google AdWords advertising or similar things to promote your resource to the people that you want to buy it. Now, one of the things I'm going to be experimenting with in the next 3 to 4 months probably is Facebook advertising. And here's why. You may not know much about Facebook advertising, but if you're on Facebook at all, I know there's a time where you're scrolling along through your feed and you see an advertisement for something that you just looked at like 10 minutes ago or an hour ago or a day ago. You looked it up on the internet and you found it. You were just considering buying it or considering and then when you're in your Facebook feed, you see an ad for that. That's not by accident. Those people who are behind that product put what they call a cookie on your computer and it tracks your activity. And if you go onto Facebook, they have paid Facebook to place their ads in front of people whose cookies they have registered, if that makes sense. And so Facebook realizes you've already been on their website and serves up their advertisement to you. It's putting something you're already interested in front of you again to try to get you to buy it. Now, that's one way that Facebook ads are pretty powerful. There's another way where you can go into Facebook and you can tell Facebook, I only want to show my advertising to people within these age ranges who are interested in these kinds of topics, who work at these kinds of places, and you can just drill down and down and down to make your particular audience very specific based on who you believe are going to purchase your product. That kind of thing can be very powerful because it's weeding out all the people in the world who aren't interested in the kinds of things you do and honing in on the people who are most likely to be interested in the things you do. And the cool thing about Facebook is you only pay for the responses that you get. Okay, you pay small amounts here and there, and you can even set a limit on the budget you want to spend from day to day. And it's a lot more complicated to that, but I'm just going to tell you, I think most online courses could generate a lot more revenue if they use Facebook ads. That's my theory right now. And it's what I've heard from other people who talk about the power of Facebook ads on podcasts and things like that. And so I'm going to be doing some experimenting. Now, I'm not going to take the time to learn it myself. I have a few associates that do it. I'm going to talk to them about the possibility of us working together, maybe in some kind of an exchange, maybe in some way where they're tutoring me on how to do it. But I'm going to start playing with Facebook ads, in particular with my 2 online courses, to see if I can increase the revenue that comes through those courses through Facebook advertising. And I will report to you what happens as I do. Man, almost 50 minutes long. This is a long episode of the Live, Build, Change podcast, but it's a valuable one because most people are intimidated by an online course, and I don't want you to be. It is work. It does take some learning, but you can do it. God has given you a powerful thing called a brain that's able to learn and process information. And more than that, He's given you His Spirit to enliven you, to instruct you, to give you the diligence and the wherewithal to push through the obstacles and resistance that you feel and create these resources that, remember, He already has in mind for you to create. So keep that in mind as you're doing all this. If you are feeling a nudge in this direction, yes, you may feel intimidation. Yes, you may feel resistance in your own soul and fear about getting into all this, and it's really going to be hard. But stop for a moment, take a deep breath, and remind yourself the God of the universe is at your back. He's the one leading you into this, and He will help you as you do this. Could I ask you to do one simple thing? Prayerfully consider who you know who may benefit from the topic of this particular episode of the Live, Build, Change podcast, and use whatever device you're using to listen to this episode to share this with that person along with a personal note. So you can do it via texting, you can do it via email. Just find the sharing function, swipe right, swipe left, do whatever. Find the sharing function and share this episode with them with a word telling them why you think they would benefit. That will help perhaps get them thinking outside the box of their normal experience toward generating additional income for their family and for other causes that they might care about as well. Thank you so much for listening. I am praying that you will take what you're learning in these episodes and you will live your faith, build a business, and change your world. I'll talk to you tomorrow on the Morning Mindset Edition.